Basement people believe that you cannot do something, that you cannot do anything. Balcony people believe in possibilities rather than limitations. My father, the Colonel, was a balcony person. We had stopped along the side of the road to help a stranded family outside of Quemado, New Mexico. The family had 3 small children and one very much on the way. They were Hispanic and spoke very little English. He pulled out his magic toolbox, rolled up his sleeves. Leaning in beside the stranded father, they went to work together. Morning turned to late afternoon, and still they tinkered. Still they toyed. Just after twilight, the stranded father got behind the wheel. The engine sputtered and then roared to life. The Colonel bellowed in triumph, grinning ear to ear. The stranded mother started to cry, and each of her children in turn ran up to my father and threw their arms around his knees. The stranded father choked back what would have been tears and offered my father a strong, greasy handshake. He kept saying, "Vaya con Dios, mi amigo, vaya con Dios." The Colonel started to shake, visibly moved as we watched their taillights drive away. Pay attention, kid. This is a road sign in your life. I challenge my audiences, because I was challenged by my father, to go beyond success towards significance. Significance has nothing whatsoever to do with how much money you make. It has nothing to do with how powerful you are or what you own. It has everything to do with how many lives you touch and the manner in which you choose to impact them. The Colonel said, "You will know that you are significant, kid. When people talk about you, they don't talk about what you've accomplished for yourself, but rather what you've achieved in the service of other people." In any corporate environment, there are clues, signal words that specify this is a turning point. I can follow this path, or I can pay attention to what I'm seeing, hearing, learning, believing, and I can make a different choice. The Colonel taught me that life is all about choices. There's an amazing vocabulary going down the toilet in favor of curse words, and I don't care what industry you're in.
I agree.
I began my corporate career in trucking. You think I heard some words?
Oh, yeah.
And then I spent 9 years managing a community theater. Because the theater is an incredibly profane environment for some reason. I don't know why, but it is. And there was a particular situation where the artistic director came across the parking lot from the deli talking about the effing sandwich that he'd gotten at the effing deli. The effing sandwich from the effing deli. And I put my hand up, I said, "David, I have just a question, curious question. What is it about that sandwich that makes it an effing sandwich? Is it the turkey? Maybe it's the mayo, the ham? I'd like to know, so as to avoid the effing sandwich in the future, what is it about that particular sandwich that makes it an effing sandwich?" He looked at me like I had 3 heads, and yet I'd gotten his attention. I said, "David, you're an incredibly articulate person. You don't have to use that kind of language to get your point across. And furthermore, I'm requesting that you don't use it in my presence, please." Now that got me labeled as a Pollyanna. But you know what? They watched their language around me. You can create a climate of respect. I believe that I was created by God to do one thing really well, to stand on stage, whatever that stage is, whether it's in front of 10 people or 1,200, spotlight in my face, microphone on my ear, moving people from one place intellectually and emotionally to another place intellectually and emotionally. That's when oxygen enters my lungs. That's when I know that I'm doing what I was created to do. The single most important factor in maintaining your own emotional control, which is also the single most important factor in maintaining your self-esteem, is what you say when you talk to yourself. Now you'll notice I'm not asking if you talk to yourself. Some of us have a committee back here. It's neuro-linguistic programming. That's all it is. But you know what I discovered? If I call my session neuro-linguistic programming, no one wants to come. So I had to get creative. I call my session, The Voices in Your Head Are Right. As a career Air Force officer, my father felt a special affinity with NASA. He swelled with pride as if it were his own accomplishment, as Neil Armstrong took that one small step for man. Dad said, you see, you can do anything. You can tell your children that in your lifetime, we put a man on the moon. There's nothing you can't do, kid.
Dad believed unconditionally in the power of the human spirit. That when faced with a challenge, whatever that challenge is, as human beings, we organically come together to work out a solution.
Apollo 13 took off from Kennedy Space Center, carrying James Lovell, Fred Hayes, and Jack Swigert. About 2 days into the mission, the American public became aware that there was a problem on board. 3 American astronauts in the void of space. An oxygen tank had exploded and blown out a large section of the command module. We watched, and we waited, and we followed Walter Cronkite's updates. The crew climbed into the lunar module using its power systems with handwritten calculations, protractors, and gut instinct to fire the rockets at just the right time, manually aiming in exactly the right place, firing for precisely the right amount of time to harness the moon's gravity pull, ricochet themselves around the backside of the moon, and propel themselves home. I watched my father's face for clues. Will they be okay, Daddy? Of course they will, kiddo. These are the very best in their field. So many things could have gone wrong. There were so many potential catastrophes that it seemed an impossible task to bring them home safely. Mom wailed, keened over lives already lost. Dad said, no, this is America. The best American engineers are on this, and we will find a way to bring them back. When the command module re-entered the atmosphere, there was a standard expected break in radio communication. I think it was expected to be about 3 minutes. To this 8-year-old little girl, it seemed like an eternity. When Commander Lovell's voice cracked over the airwaves, "Hello, Houston. This is Odyssey. It's good to see you again." My father cried, unabashedly with tears running down his cheeks. He said, "You see, I told you. You can do anything. All it takes is ingenuity and willpower." I think this was actually the moment that secured my father's belief that duct tape can fix anything.
I see the greatest need for the concept of treating each other with respect, choosing to be balcony people, choosing to approach life from higher ground. There's a greater need for that in the United States now than ever before. It's about human dignity and recognizing the dignity in every human being. And that compels us to treat each other with respect.
99% of what we are, we have in common with every other human being on the planet. If we could focus on that, instead of on our differences, the balcony concept of treating each other with respect would be so much easier.